thank everybody for coming today. I am Mike Wyrick, and while Nate runs our club normally, I am the vice chair, I guess, if we had official positions. So Mike Wyrick, vice chair of the Phoenix Club. The Phoenix Club is technically a PAC. We are a PAC that functions to give money to Democratic candidates in Linn County to help them win. I'm going to be very brief with my remarks today because I'm going to give 10 minutes to each of our wonderful 1st Congressional District candidates. Give them 10 minutes to talk about whatever they want, their backgrounds and their thoughts on the issues and all of that. So I'm going to be short. Let me introduce our elected officials really quickly. Rob Hogue is here. Scott Bones, candidate in House District. And Jennifer Borcherding from the school board. Did I miss anybody else? Okay. The format, as I said, we're going to give each of these guys 10 minutes to talk about whatever they want, or up to 10 minutes. You don't have to take the whole 10 if you don't want to. And then we'll do a Q&A afterwards, which you can either direct to an individual candidate or to the group as a whole. And that's pretty much it. 4 years ago, we did a meeting like this, and I thought it was very useful and helped me make up my mind about which candidate I was going to go with, and I hope that the same thing happens today. We start in the order that people showed up, and George Ramsey was first. So George, your 10 minutes is here.
All right.
All right, thanks for coming.
So last time somebody gave me 10 minutes to speak, 45 minutes later.
I won't be doing that.
Abby and I will roast you. Yeah. We'll hold up the card.
Well, hey, it's good to be here. Certainly good to have a chance to spend our Saturday afternoon with you. You know, some 16 days away now from the June primary. And, you know, I grew up just 5 hours south of here in Kansas City, Missouri. And, I'm the oldest of 2 boys who was raised by a divorced single mother. And, you know, my mother raised my brother and I certainly to really understand the value of service and working and serving in our communities. You know, that's where I learned to really develop my non-stop can-do attitude about being a true servant in the community where I was raised. You know, someone who was a product of the village that I was raised in. You know, and so as I certainly grew up and had opportunities to witness my mother doing things for other people, it became very obvious for certainly my brother and I the kind of work that we were going to do, the kind of things that were going to be necessary for us to be able to live out our lives. And so I, you know, ended up joining the Army at 17 years old, and had a short stint, served on active duty for a few years, and got out after Desert Storm, and wound up working for the state of Missouri as a special agent for the Missouri Department of Public Safety. And then woke up one morning and decided, you know, I really love serving in the Army, and so decided to rejoin the Army, and in 2016 retired after 31 years of service. And so that, you know, above other things, you know, having children and being married has been one of the biggest highlights of my life. But all while I was serving in the Army, my wife and I, traveling across the country, we were actively involved in the things that were going on in our community. We were actively involved with working with young people, helping them to create opportunities and a pathway for them to move on to after high school, so that for those who wanted to go to college, they have opportunities to do that. For those who wanted to go into the workforce, they have opportunities to do that. And even for those who wanted to serve their country, being the kind of example that they could follow, so that they can go on to serve in our armed forces. And when the time came, certainly for me to make a decision about retiring, we had to make a choice about where we wanted to live out the rest of our lives. And, you know, when I came to Iowa in 2012, I always talk to people about the fact that Iowa chose us. And it was Cedar Rapids where we decided to live, although I was working in Waterloo. and commuting back and forth every day. My wife had started working for a nonprofit here in the community, and we've begun working with students at the Cedar Rapids School District in Waterloo, where I was stationed, and then working with families in this community to help create better lives for those who were struggling every day to be able to make ends meet, people who were dealing with challenges, to be able to put food on the table, to be able to provide a stable housing for the children to be able to live. And it's that kind of work, the kind of work that has really compelled me to want to continue, in this lifetime commitment to serve that has me here today. Look, you don't only have to turn on the television, pick up a paper, or listen to the radio to realize that, this country is not going in the direction that many of us hoped it would go. We have a serious lack of leadership coming out of Washington every single day. And so it's time for a bold new leader to go to Washington to be able to work on behalf of the people they represent, someone who is willing to serve, someone who has dedicated their life to serving not just this country, but people in our communities. Someone who's been on the front lines every single day, watching the difficulties that people are dealing with and wanting to not just talk about doing something about it, but actually do something about it. As I travel all across this district and have opportunities to talk to people from county to county, we're hearing them talk about the struggles that they're dealing with when it comes to their health care. We're talking to retirees who are concerned about their Social Security. Just yesterday I was in Dubuque talking to a group of veterans who are concerned that they could not get the level of care that is necessary to ensure that our VA is providing the kind of services that they should have so that they can be able to live healthy, prosperous lives. It's time for us to have leaders who are going to be dedicated to working through those issues to be able to deliver for the people that we serve every single day. And so that's why I'm in this race. I'm in this race not because I'm a fighter. I'm in this race because I want to continue this lifetime commitment to serve. This lifetime commitment to serving people in our community, not just here in Cedar Rapids, but all across the First District and certainly all across the state. And then as we begin to look at what's happening here, we know that the things that are affecting people in Iowa affect people in Missouri, they affect people in Kansas, Minnesota, and all over this country. And so it's going to take a leader, certainly, who can be able to stand up to a Rod Blunt and a Donald Trump, to be able to act on behalf of the people who are counting on them to lead every single day, so that we don't have to continue to talk about the struggles that we're dealing with every day, but we can start talking about the things that make being an American great again. Someone asked me recently whether I considered myself a liberal, a centrist, a moderate. Where do you fall along the line? What I told them was that, listen, I said, man, look, I'm a proud Democrat, and that's where I fall. And so as Democrats, I believe that we have to be excited about who we are. We have to not fall into the trappings of being labeled to be certain types of people who believe in certain types of things. I believe that every person in this room, at the end of the day, wants the same thing for our neighbors. We want to ensure that not only will our kids get access to a quality education, but they will receive one. We want to ensure that not only will our retirees have the protections that they need to be able to live out the remaining days of their life, but that they can get one. Those are the kinds of things that I think are important, and that's why, it's important for George Ramsey to certainly be in this race, to be able to stand up for those who are counting on someone to be accountable, someone to be responsible, and someone to be accessible to the people that they serve. And so as I think about why it's important not only for us to win in June, but to be able to go into November and to be able to beat Rob Blum and to be able to provide citizens in this district with the kind of leadership they want, they need, and they expect. There's only one candidate that I firmly believe has the ability to be able to beat Rob Blum to do that, and that's me. And so that's why I'm in this race. That's why I'm here, certainly vying for your support and the support of your friends and your neighbors and your family and those who are going to walk into a voting booth if they have not already done so on June the 5th and cast their ballot, because we've got to win in November to be able to get us to a place where we can feel good about being Democrats, we can feel good about being Americans, and we can feel good about being people again and not have to continue to fight through the challenges that are impacting our lives every day. And so we're going to continue to do all the things that we need to do. over the next 16 days to be successful at being able to do that. We're leaving here and we're headed to Waterloo this afternoon. Tomorrow we'll be in Manchester. We're doing all the things all across this district, not just here in Blackhawk or Linn County, but and in Blackhawk County. But we're working extremely hard in our rural communities, making sure that that they know that the issues that are important to them are no different than the issues that are important to people all across this district. And we're fighting hard every single day to make sure that we're going to bring them together so that we can all come together as one, so that we can build a stronger Iowa and create a brighter future for all Iowans, not just a few. And so that's why I'm in this race. That's why I want your support, and that's certainly why I want your vote on June 5th. And so thanks, Mike and Nate, for really putting this thing together and giving us an opportunity to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. And our second arrival today was Thomas Heckroth.
Oh, well, thank you everyone for coming out on a beautiful day. I know when you're competing against the sun, it's a little tough sometimes. But I do want to give you a little bit, or talk with you a little bit about who I am and why I'm running. For those of you that don't know me, excuse me as I get frog in the throat. I grew up in Waverly, up in Bremer County, on the banks of the Cedar River. And I traveled all over this district talking about the core values that I was raised to believe you bring to the world around me. They were compassion, conviction, community, and citizenship. And I think that those are also values we're missing most in our politics today. But they're what drove me after graduating from Iowa and a short stint on the Hawkeye baseball team to shape, instead of chasing a big paycheck, I chose public service. I went to work for Iowa's and Senator Martin. I helped them out on the 2008 Farm Bill. They got more votes than any Farm Bill since 1973. We took on for-profit colleges who were taking advantage of our veterans and taxpayers. And I stood with them until we were one vote short of passing the Employee Free Choice Act, which would make it easier for Iowans and Americans to join the union. I then was fortunate to be appointed to the Department of Labor as the Deputy Chief of Staff in the Obama administration, where I worked to hold our trading partners and corporations accountable to international labor standards and level the playing field for American workers. And most recently, I've spent my time in the private sector as a corporate reporter, working to show that you can make a profit without doing it at the expense of people or the environment. Now, I think, as I mentioned, these values, I think, are the ones that we're missing most in our politics, but frankly, we have a government and a representative who have no interest in governing or representing right now. There's too much talk, too much chaos, not enough actually getting things done. What we need is a representative who will listen, who will work, and who will lead. What we need is a representative who understands it's more than a job title, it's a job description. Now, the challenge I think that we are facing as Democrats is I think everybody in this room understands the problems that we're facing and the challenges that we're facing. We as Democrats have to provide a path forward, a vision for the future, not just a critique of the past and the present. We need an economy that values work, not just wealth. We need to rebuild a secure middle class and build a strengthening middle class that allows people to live and work where they want. To do that, we have to make smart investments in you and your family to spur innovation, growth, and higher paying jobs. One thing that will help that is a $15 minimum wage. But I'll tell you what won't get it done, and that's the tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. And I'm pretty confident I'm not the only one in the year who's tired of getting trickled on. But I'm a sixth generation Iowan. My family came to Iowa in the mid-1800s. They settled down in Tama County, or I guess over in Tama County, and helped raise horses and build the railroad in Tama Waterloo. But they came to Iowa, to America, for more than that. They wanted to own their future. And for them, that was literally the ground beneath their feet. So I'm running for Congress because it's time for us to own our future. We need to rebuild a secure middle class, to lead and to lead with our values. That's going to take smart investments, as I mentioned before, but in people, ideas, and infrastructure. It starts with a good education, a quality public school, job skills if you want to join a good paying trade, or a college education that doesn't come with a lifetime of debt. But Rod Blum and Betsy DeVos want to send our tax dollars to private schools and make it even harder to pay for college. It means never giving up the fight for quality, affordable health care for everyone. And that can start by expanding Medicare down to 50. Allow anyone 50 up buying Medicare if they so choose. Allow anyone buying the same health insurance as members of Congress and their staff do. So we have more options that can start bringing premiums and deductibles down. But we also know that Congressman Blum wants to go back to the days of pre-existing conditions, and frankly, when being a woman was essentially a pre-existing condition. He wants to go back to the days of nearly 50 million uninsured Americans. And he's going to do the insurance companies work for him by allowing them to raise premiums by sabotaging the Affordable Care Act. Now, another way that we actually own our future is by investing in our ideas, by reigniting our lost innovation advantage, so that we're creating the products and the jobs, high-paying jobs of tomorrow here in the First District. That takes real investment in basic scientific research, strengthening business incentives so that they are maintaining and managing their own research and development. It also means modernizing our roads, our schools, our broadband connections, and our energy grid, because we need to welcome modern business and modern farms. And we heard a couple weeks ago from the White House that that infrastructure bill that he talked about, that's not happening. But I don't think we should be surprised that we haven't gotten a real job-creating infrastructure bill out of a man who spent his entire life building monuments to himself. Now, I think one of the things that you are here to do, and the reason this primary is important, is because we have to decide who is best able to take on Congressman Rod Plum and to win in November. And I think in order to do that, we need a candidate that can do three things. We need a candidate to take Rod Plum on head on and hold him accountable to his disastrous record and his backwards priorities. We need a candidate who can unite the party and make sure that we're moving forward together. We also need a candidate that will run a different campaign. We have run the same type of campaign in this district for the last 2 cycles, and it hasn't worked. We need to have a different approach that's more engaging, that's more welcoming to people outside of our metro areas. I'm a candidate that can build all three of those things. My experience, and I'm the only candidate in this race who has experience in federal policy and in the private sector. And I can hold Congressman Plum accountable for his mistaken priorities and make sure that we're standing up to him and making sure that we're providing, as I said, a vision beyond that, a vision forward. Because of my background in growing up in small town Iowa, I work on the agriculture committee, I can bring all Iowans together here in the First District. Whether it's farmers and environmentalists, whether it's rural and metro, whether it's liberals, conservatives, Democrats, or moderates, you can bring them all under one tent. So we're moving forward and actually getting this state and this district back on track. Now, I mentioned running a different type of campaign. I've been to all 20 counties in this district nearly twice. Done over 100 campaign stops. Because the first thing I did when I was thinking of running for office was I called Senator Harden. And I said, Tom, you've been pretty successful at this. What do you think I should do to actually craft this nut? And he said, Thomas, you got to show up. You have to be president of rural Iowa because we have left rural Iowans behind. The plan in the last couple of election cycles in this race has been you focus on Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, and Waterloo and Cedar Falls. You drive up turnout as high as you can in those metro areas, and we think that will overcome our losses in rural Iowa. It hasn't worked. That's been the approach from national Democrats for years in this district and in this state. And we have to run a different race. We have to make sure that we are making our case to everyone, and we have to make sure that we are listening, not just talking at them. And so those are, again, the three things, the three qualities of people that I think we need in a candidate. And I think when you think, going back to those values that I mentioned at the start, passion, conviction, community, and citizenship, those values require and demand that we get Iowa and America back on track. So if you believe that together we can make our economy, our institutions, our American dream work for us again, then I'm Thomas Heckroth. I'm running for Congress. I'm asking for your vote on June 5th or before. If you'd like to go before, I won't vote against you. And together we can own our future. So thank you very much. I look forward to chatting with you.
Thank you, Tom. Both of those came in at 8 minutes.
Wow.
All right, and next up is Courtney Rowe.
That's pretty good. We all
Thank you
right?
everybody for coming out today. My name is Courtney Rowe, and I'm running for U.S. Congress because I believe in America. I believe in the potential of every American. I believe in a country where life, liberty, and opportunity are what allow us to pursue happiness. Does that sound like a good place to you? Yeah? My background is I'm an aerospace engineer. I spent almost 12 years working in fly-by-wire flight controls, helping over 6 aircraft platforms from 5 different manufacturers, 1 American and 4 from other countries, get in the air and be as safe as possible and as fuel efficient as possible. And I thought, when I look at Washington, D.C., and I look at the problems that we're facing. These are all solvable problems. These are all things that have solutions. But the problem is that the people in Washington, D.C. don't want to solve them. Because the people who are funding their campaigns have not paid them to solve those problems. They've paid them to keep the system the way that it is, so that those with the most power and the most money in our country continue to profit. And so I knew that if I wanted to go in there and really solve the problems, that the first thing that I would need to do is campaign differently. Because until we campaign differently, we cannot legislate differently. And so when I got into this race, I said I'm going to run a completely grassroots campaign. I'm not going to take any PAC money. I'm not going to take any lobbyist money. Every donation is going to be individual. And instead of spending all my time on phones calling people and raising money, the first thing I did with my campaign last summer is I went out and I met them, wherever they were at. I didn't care if they were Democrats, they were independents, or they were Republicans. I was just at New Boat before this event, and it's funny because when I go over there, I always run into people that are like, I see you, you were at this festival, and you were at that festival, because I just live down the street in Cedar Rapids, right? But what it is people in the community going out where they're at, meeting people where they're at. That's what a representative is supposed to do. And so that has been the focus of my campaign, whether it's county fairs in rural Iowa, or whether it's festivals here in Cedar Rapids or in Waterloo. Going out where people are at and meeting. In small towns, one of the best places I've found is their local pub. You can go to a small town that's got 300 or 150 people. There's really not a whole bunch of businesses, but there's usually a nice little pub there, and that's where everybody congregates. And so I go in there in the evening on the way back from an event or on the way to an event, and I go around and I just meet everybody in the place. I don't care if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or you're an independent. And the thing that resonates with people the most is that I'm talking about ideas, that I'm talking about solutions. I'm not trying to sell them that the way forward is a liberal policy or a conservative policy. I'm trying to sell them on good ideas. And that is what people in our state want, that's what people in our country want, that's what people here in the first want. They just want some good ideas. And they want people who aren't afraid to find common ground, whether it's with a Democrat or an independent or a Republican. So that's what I'm bringing. And when I look at it, if we want to have the best country, the way to do that is to help every person become their best, most productive self. Right? If everybody can reach their full potential, then we as a country will reach our full potential. You can't be your best, most productive self if you're sick and you don't have access to health. As a cancer survivor myself, someone who was diagnosed with cancer at 26 years old, completely unexpectedly. Nobody in my family had ever had cancer. And I got diagnosed with cancer, and fortunately for me, I had a good job. I was an aerospace engineer. I worked at a big company. I bought the most expensive, best plan that they offered, and I still almost went bankrupt. Because that is the reality of the health insurance market in our country. And it doesn't work this way in any other country in the world. The conservative ideology and the liberal ideology, they don't fight over this in other countries. Because it just makes sense to have a system that takes care of everybody. It's just practical. And that is why I am supporting single-payer improved Medicare for all. And I am committing to you that if you send me to Washington, D.C., the door knocking won't stop when I get there. I will knock the door of every single representative and senator until we get this passed. Because it's about helping people reach their potential. No one should choose between living and going in debt. No one should have to have the conversation that I had with my mom. After getting 2 out-of-pocket maxes in just 4 months, I'm on the phone with my mom, and the cancer was in my neck. I had to take my neck apart, put it back together. And I needed to relearn to use my right arm. But I still had to pay a copay for every physical therapy session, $50 a time. And I needed physical therapy at least 3 times a week. And I remember talking to my mom on the phone and saying, Mom, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. I don't have the money. I'm totally broke. I'm in debt. And my mom said, but Courtney, are you not going to relearn to use your right arm? You know, in case you forgot, you're right-handed. And I'm like, I'm aware of that. That should not be a conversation that anyone in our country has. It's just wrong. And so I'm going to fight to change it. You can't be your best, most productive self if you don't have access to the school that you need, the education you need, or the job training that you need. No one should go into a lifetime of debt just to get the skills that they need to go be productive. And that's why I support tuition-free public colleges and trade schools. Because that is just not something that I want someone to hold themselves back on. That is keeping people from earning more money, paying more taxes, and buying more products. You know, as an aerospace engineer, it doesn't matter how cool the planes are that I design if nobody can afford planes. That's just a fact. So I want to make sure that everybody can. To go along with that, you can't be your best, most productive self if you have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. And that's why I support a $15 minimum wage. A wage that will help people meet a living wage. And I have a 3-year phase-in plan that will allow small businesses to be 6 months behind large corporations, so that they can see the money in the economy increasing their revenues before they have to raise wages to their employees. I think that is a plan that will deal with our wealth inequality problem, and a plan that will help people get back on their feet, get off of assistance. I mean, we're all paying for it as taxpayers when we pay for their housing, we have to supplement their health care, we have to supplement their food, because they can't make a living wage. And it holds people back from moving on from minimum wage jobs. People like my mom. My mom was working 2 jobs and going to school at night at the community college to become an accountant. She had to drop out of school because we couldn't make it on 2 jobs and take a 3rd job pretending bar at night. And that meant that most of my childhood, I slept for half the night on the couch at my great-grandmother's place. And that means my mom never was able to become an accountant or a CPA, even though she was really talented at it. You know what she does now? She works at a casino helping people fill out their tax forms, but she doesn't get paid like an accountant does. That has held her back, and because of that, people in our community have lost the economic value that she could have added, her full potential, the taxes that she could have paid. That has held her back. And another example is just my father. I don't have to go far, right? I have this example just in my own family after my parents divorced. My father worked full-time as a technician during the day, but he had a little bit of help. He got paid just a little bit better as a technician than my mom got paid as a waitress. And his company paid for his college. So as he told me whenever I would complain about how hard engineering school was, that his 13 years of night school to become an electrical engineer was really difficult to do, but he was able to do it because he could live off of what he makes as a technician, and he had that ability to go to school. And that means that my dad now is a successful electrical engineer, making very good money, and here's my mom, still in a low-wage job. Both of them are talented. Both of them have the capability to be successful. They just had different opportunities. That's the problem. That's what we have to do to help unlock it. A couple more items I'm going to talk about here. The future of the economy, the world economy, is going to face 2 major challenges. The first is green energy. Our environment is facing this, and our energy system is going to go to green energy. And other countries are beating us right now in their development and their implementation of green energy. The United States has risen to the top country in the world because of our technological achievements. That's why we're here. And we need to lead on green energy. And I have a really simple way to do that. I call it my homeowner green energy plan. And what it would do is allow people to finance, as part of their mortgage, improvements to their home, like solar panels, green energy systems, any kind of alternative green energy system that reduces our environmental impact and helps us own our own energy. And it totally makes sense because this is an improvement to your home. Eventually you'll sell it, you'll get the money back. This is exactly the way I think we should do it. It doesn't really cost the government anything. This is just helping us finance it. And here's the other thing that's really interesting. We actually already have a provision for this. You know what the problem is? The FHA allows you to do this. It's limited to 5% of your home's value.
1 minute.
1 minute? Okay. So if you do the math, I'll do it for you, don't worry. If you want a full energy replacement system on your home, it might be up to $30,000, which means you need a $600,000 house. So we just need to look at that. The second thing that's coming is the automation revolution. This is going to be huge. Jobs and the way we work and the way the economy works is going to totally change in the next 10 years. And we're seeing it coming. That means that it's going to be more and more important for people to be able to start their own small businesses. There are going to be opportunities to produce things that you couldn't produce in previous years because you needed huge factories. But people have to be able to access that capital. And that's what my Main Street Market Plan does. Is it helps people raise funds by selling public shares through a simplified method for small businesses. So they don't have the high paperwork they have from the SEC or large companies. So these are my plans, these are my ideas. I've got a lot, I've got a whole of your questions. I've got flyers over there if you want one, t-shirts for sale. Some people are going to say these ideas are radical. And when they do, what I want you to tell them is that justice is always called radical by those profiting from injustice. I'm Courtney Rowe, I'm running for U.S. Congress. I want your support on June 5th, and I'm doing this because I believe in you. Thank you.
During this campaign.
Thank you, Courtney, and last but not least, happy Finkenauer.
Well, hi everybody. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the Phoenix Club, Mike and Nate for putting this on. I know Nate's outside right now enjoying the sunshine. So, and thanks everybody for, again, it's just beautiful out. So the fact that you took time today to come here, it means a lot to us. And I'll just get right to it. So I'm Abby Finkenauer, state representative from Dubuque, been serving for the last 4 years. And now I'm running for Congress against Rod Blum because this is personal. I mean, I grew up a daughter of a union pipe fitter welder. My mom actually just retired from the Dubuque Community School District. And when she retired, just recently, a couple months ago, I asked her, so why do you decide to retire now? And she could have waited a year or so. And she looked at me and she said, well, Abby, I'm worried if I don't retire now, Paul Ryan and those Republicans in the U.S. House are going to change the retirement age of Social Security. And I looked at her and I went, oh my gosh, Mom, yes, you and so many folks across this district are living in the exact same boat. So again, it's personal. And you know, the rest of my family, there was actually 4 of us. We were all 4 kids. We were all first-generation college graduates. I'm still paying off student loans, so not always easy. In fact, when I was 10 years old, I remember having to have my dad's business agent's name memorized because you guys remember caller ID, the little white boxes? So when that name showed up on that caller ID, that meant Dad had to get that phone call because that meant Dad had a job. And I remember months and sometimes, well, years when that name wasn't showing up very often. And I remember the conversations that my parents had around the kitchen table talking about how they were going to make it. So again, you know, not always easy, but I grew up in a state and in a country where if you worked hard, you can make it. That was the idea. And unfortunately, right now, that's becoming nearly impossible because of the policies being pushed by that Freedom Caucus member we have representing us right now, Rod Blum. And speaking of Rod Blum, and I don't like to do it too often, but he and I were actually elected at the exact same time in 2014. That's when I became the state representative, and that's when he became our congressman. But I assure you, that is where our similarities end, because he has spent the last 4 years in Washington, D.C., doing everything in his power, making it harder for my friends, my family, my neighbors, and folks in this room. And in contrast, I have been right here in the state of Iowa fighting hard the last 4 years against attacks after attacks in that state house on everything from women and our right to choose our health care and what to do with our bodies, on attacks on our public education system, on our workers, gutting of collective bargaining, gutting of workers' compensation, making it harder for folks who are working 40 hours a week who get hurt on the job to get fair compensation they deserve. Gutting of, just a couple weeks ago, our energy efficiency programs in the state. And I tell you what, I haven't just been a vote against these attacks, I have been a voice. And I'm running for Congress because I think it's time that we take this voice to Washington, D.C. and let them all know very, very loud and clear that being a part of a union, that's something to be proud of. And that it's time that we invest in our education system again. Our pre-K, K through 12, but also our skilled trades and our apprenticeship programs. Because quite frankly, not everybody is going to go to college, and you shouldn't have to. To be able to work hard and have a good life like my parents were able to do and that my grandparents were able to do. But if you do decide to go, or your kids decide to go, my goodness, they deserve the right to go and not graduate with a mountain of student loan debt like I'm still paying off today. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I can't even buy a new car right now because of my student loan payments. And there are folks all across Iowa and across this country, and again, the exact same boat. And we definitely have to start talking about healthcare. I mean, this is a right, not a privilege. And when we talk about healthcare, we better be talking about mental health care and the opioid epidemic in our state and in our country. You know, I did talk to one of the sheriffs it's been a few months ago, and I asked him, what's the number one thing that keeps you up at night? It's one of my favorite questions to ask folks out on the trail. And his answer was very simply and quickly, the mental health epidemic and the opioid epidemic in our state. And he said, Abby, and they go hand in hand, and he told me a story that I will never forget and that I tell often now. And it's that he gives out medals to his deputies when they save people's lives. And he said, when I tell people this, they assume these folks are getting medals from saving somebody out of a car crash or something like that. He was sure that happens. But the majority of the medals he is handing out right now are going from his deputies stopping someone in the jails from committing suicide. So we're paying for it one way or the other. We're just not doing it the right way or the humane way that we should be doing it. And so those are some of the problems we absolutely have to address. But at the same time, we can talk about growing our economy and growing our country and our state again. Part of that is investing in renewable energy and making sure that we are investing in wind and solar, which we know helps our state. And also, it's about expanding broadband access, especially in our rural areas. It's about raising wages. It's about investing in infrastructure. And when I talk about infrastructure, especially when I'm here in Cedar Rapids, I like to remind everybody, I'm not talking about a border wall out of Mexico. I'm talking about a Cedar Rapids flood wall. That's the infrastructure we need. And I'm sure as heck not talking about starting a trade war on Twitter. You see, this race got a little bit more personal to me a couple weeks ago, or now almost a month ago. You see, my brother and my sister, my brother-in-law, my sister, are corn and soybean farmers. They are waking up every single day worried about their future. That is not how we should be in this country or in this state. And quite frankly, we have a lot of work to do, like I just said. And there's a lot of folks, mind you, when I decided to do this about a year ago, who said that I was too far gone, that we couldn't take a seat like this back. And then I started running. And I started walking around this district and talking to folks. And you want to know what I realized really quickly? In about 2 months, I knew 2018 in this race was not going to come down to whether you're Democratic or Republican. It was going to come down to whether you care about your neighbors or do not. It was going to come down to our values and how we grew up here. I knew that. I mean, and to be frank with you, the folks that I've talked to, some of them have voted the other way. But they are waking up and they are seeing that we deserve better, and we deserve a country where, yeah, you can work hard and you can make it. And that's why we've thrown our heart and soul into this, and have worked really hard all across this district. We've already been to the 20 counties, doing it again before June 5th. But here's the thing. This race has never been to me about just winning June 5th. This is about winning in November and making sure that we can hold Broadwell accountable, because it's too important. We see this district, we need it to win back that U.S. House, but we also need it to win back that State House and that Governor's Mansion. And again, that's personal to me as well. This is our state on the line and our country. And I just want to end here quick with a story of what public service actually means to me. Again, I've been lucky enough to get to do that the last 4 years, but the person that I learned what it all meant was my grandfather. He was actually a firefighter, and when I was growing up, we were really, really close. He unfortunately passed away, but he's the one I'd sit around the kitchen table with talking about issues, and always had some really interesting discussions. But he was also the guy that when he got a phone call for his job to run into a burning building, he didn't ask first, what color's your skin? how much money do you make? What religion are you? Are you male, female? How old are you? He didn't ask those questions. He just showed up and he helped people and he did his job. And that to me is what this is all about. So I'm asking you right now for your support. Make sure you send me to Washington, D.C. so that you have somebody sitting there thinking about that every single day and reminding all of those people in D.C. about the folks here in Iowa that they have absolutely forgotten. So thank you so much for coming out today. Your support would mean the world to me, and we really need to work together here to make sure we can take back our state and our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby, and thank you, all four of you, not just for coming today, but for running. I know it's a lot of hard work and just an amazing amount of time and dedication. So thank you. I think we can probably all agree that any of these four would be much better than our current. And with that, I'd like to open it up to questions, either for an individual or for the group as a whole. Just be clear about what you want. Scott?
From the day I arrived at headquarters where I worked for the Deputy Chief of Staff of Intelligence, every morning we used to have a morning stand-up. It's called an order of battle. And the order of battle stand-up was there talking about matchups. How do we win? We need to win our first district. I'd like each one of the candidates to tell me from a matchup standpoint how you match up against Rod Blum and why your matchup will allow us to win.
Let's try and keep these to like a minute. That's fair.
Just want to go down.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Well, thanks for the question. It's something we have to talk about. Well, besides the obvious, Rod Blum and I are very different. And a lot of that actually has to do about our records. I mean, again, as I talked about at the beginning there, the last 4 years he's been in D.C. screwing over my friends and family, and I have the record here in Iowa standing up for them every single time. And again, it is so personal to me. We actually might have grown up in Dubuque or around Dubuque, kind of similar, but it's very clear he's forgotten where he's came from, and I'm going to make sure he remembers and we hold him accountable. So thank you.
So in the Army, we call it stand 2. There was so much different. But I believe I posed a very significant challenge, certainly for Rod Blum. You know, my personal and professional experiences have uniquely qualified me to be the kind of candidate that Rod Blum is going to find to be a very difficult challenge. We've already started seeing a lot of messaging that Rod Blum is preparing himself for, where I believe he's getting ready for a general election. He's starting to do more work with veterans across this district. He's starting to really strengthen his ability to be more veteran-friendly, so that eventually, as he starts moving into a general election, he has a leg to stand on in a district that is very heavily driven or heavily represented by veteran population. And so what I say to that is you can't out-vet a vet. You can't out-vet someone who's dedicated their life to serving people in their community, serving this country more differently than he has done. You know, as I travel all across this district, from county to county, city to city, the things that we're hearing about Rod Blum are that it's inaccessible, is that he won't show up, is that no one can count on him to truly be there for the benefit of the people that he has to represent, not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents and people who don't vote. And so I believe that certainly my experiences in the Army have best qualified me for that type of matchup. The kind of person who can stand toe-to-toe to a Rod Blum and be able to make Republicans and independents and people who don't vote feel good about walking into a voting booth and voting for George Ramsey. And so that's what makes me so much different. And that's what's going to make me so much more competitive when it comes to a toe-to-toe matchup with Rod Blum.
Okay, thank you. A minute's going to be too short. I'm going to let you go 2 on each question if you want. So next up, Courtney.
So when you look at this, so in the Air Force, we call it mission and vision. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we always do. So I served in the Air Force Reserves, and I actually signed up for the Air Force Reserves a week and a half, took my oath before September 11th look out. So my friends had been flying missions, 6 months in combat, 6 months homes, their entire careers. And I think when we look at Rod Blum, and I talk to people who like him for independence, the things that they talk about are the fact that he stands up against corruption, right? That's how he hates himself, this corruption fighter, right? He goes in there and he always throws out these things. He throws out these little things like, oh, I found $100,000 I can save here. He talked about he saved $150,000, I think it was, in operating expenses in his offices. Well, I know why. That's because they were never there, right? I mean, he was inaccessible. I don't think that's a good saving of money. But that's kind of how he sells himself to the independents. But the truth is that he's full of corruption. His whole campaign is funded by the Koch brothers. And I think we attack him on PACs. I think we attack him on lobbyist money. And I have the best ability to do that because I have funded my campaign 100% from small donations, completely grassroots. And so I can expose him on his lies. And that's what we have to do. Because when you're running against somebody who's an incumbent, you have to make the case not only what you were going to do that's better, not only what you're going to get done that's better, but also why they're failing to do their job. And I think I can make that case very easily, and I hope I get the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
So I touched on this a little bit in my opening remarks, but we need a candidate who can go toe-to-toe with Congressman, who can hold him accountable for his poor decision-making, his terrible voting record, his backwards priorities. I actually have a record of accomplishment compared to Congressman 511. When we want to talk, and again, in politics, I think you have to make sure that you are taking on your opponent's greatest strength. And Courtney is right. Congressman talks about being a fiscal responsible member of Congress. Well, tax cuts not fiscal responsible. And his money savings may be tiddlywinks, if you will, based on his office. But I actually drafted legislation to save the federal government $60 billion that actually went into, was actually enacted and actually turned that money back into making college and education more affordable. I've worked with Senator Harkin to establish a farm bill that works for working families, that works for family farms, and that actually produces and focuses on conservation. Congressman Blum and Republicans can't even get a farm bill passed out of the House because they argue amongst themselves. We are dealing with complete dysfunction in our government right now, and it's held by one party. So we need somebody who has the experience, has the knowledge, the ability to go toe-to-toe with it. And I think that's where my background, my experience helps, but not just on the federal government side. I have had to work not only across aisles, but across cultures, across countries. In my private sector experience, I traveled all over the world, seeing them working our lunch eaten, by China, India, and others, in whether it's renewable energy, whether it's manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. And we have a congressman who won't stand up for us. It's going to take us making sure that we have a member of Congress that can say, they can point out his poor business record as well. And given my background in both the business world and the federal government, I think I'm best able to do that and to make a compelling case about how we actually move the country forward by building a strong foundation for all islands.
Abby, I shorted you. Would you like another minute to talk about?
Yeah, actually, thank you for that. One of the things I didn't touch on, but I think is really important here. Look, 48% of union members voted for Donald Trump and voted Republican. Okay? That is a problem. If that is your stat, we're always going to lose either one because, quite frankly, we all know this. If you're in a labor union, you know someone who is, you relate to someone who is like I am. And there are a lot of the folks that, again, feel as though Washington has forgotten them because Washington has. The policies that are being pushed right there, like I said, are throwing them under the bus every single time. Same thing on the state level right now. And so when I can walk into a union hall and talk to folks, and it not be talking points, but it be my life, there's your difference. And I'm really, really proud to say, I mean, we've got 14 different labor union endorsements here. I believe the only one in this race that has any labor union endorsements, and also should be having an exciting announcement, right, James, on Monday, I hope? Yeah, James will be letting me know another exciting announcement on Monday on that as well. It's really important here. I mean, these again are my friends and family. There's a guy I went to elementary school with in 9th kids in my class, and ran into him the other day, and he was an iron worker, and you know what? He was frustrated with the system. He voted the other way last time, said he's not doing it this time. You want to know why? Because of that tax plan. Because he was frustrated that he was getting 40 bucks and other people were getting Ferraris. And those are the types of folks that, again, are my friends and family that I've been fighting for every single day and that absolutely need a voice in Washington, D.C. And I'm that voice, absolutely not Rob Blunt. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question.
That's what my question's going to be about.
Education!
Yay! Nailed it. So I think that Iowa Department of Education does a pretty good job of putting out some statistics, but I think a lot of times when we're looking at statistics, we're actually losing the meaning that's behind them. So my question to you is, how do you plan on gathering information to regard decisions and policy regarding education for District 1?
And let's start with George.
Well, I think the first thing we've got to do is we've got to meet. And we have to know how and who we need to contact to be able to get the information that's necessary to be able to drive the decisions that are being made in Washington every day. And that means not only does the person who's going to represent this district have to be accessible, but you know, the state boards have to be accessible. Those who have the information and have the knowledge about how we can better improve the quality of education in the state for our children is what we're going to need to be able to do. But we've got to be able to find ways to fund education at the very earliest stages. And so that means that we've got to start at the pre-K level to do that. And I've got a 5-year-old granddaughter. My granddaughter learned to read at 3 years old. My kids, the same way. You know, when my son was at 3 years old, he was learning to read. My daughter, same thing in pre-K. And so we know that the benefits that if we fully fund pre-K education, there are true benefits to being able to help them progress throughout their matriculation through school. And so that's what it's going to take, certainly for us to be able to do that. But we also have to have a federal education system that one, doesn't handicap us by putting people in place who don't believe in the quality of education and things we're trying to do for the young people in this country. And so, you know, that's what it's going to require for us to be able to move in a much better direction, to be able to be more informed about the needs, to be more informed about how we can truly become more innovative in our learning approaches and the things that we can be able to do to make sure that no child is left without the full opportunities they need to be successful in life. And so we create certainly much the direction that the Cedar Rapids School District is going in and taking an and approach where every student has an opportunity to learn all the tools that are necessary for them to be successful. Not creating an or approach where students who are prepared for college are prepared for college, those who are being prepared for the workforce are being prepared for the workforce, and they're not having dual opportunities for success. And so those are the things that I think we need to do.
So I would say the best people to ask what's needed to help kids learn and what we need in our education system are teachers. Right? They're the ones that are actually teaching, and they know what resources they're missing. A year and a half ago, it was December, and I had someone who I actually met in the political realm reach out to me, and she said, she knew I was an aerospace engineer, she said, Courtney, I've got a kid, she's at a local elementary school here. It's a little bit of the poorer part of town, if you will. And they're in this project called Future State. They were supposed to have a mentor, and the company that was supposed to have mentors, they never showed up. And she said, would you be able to recruit some mentors? And so I started asking questions, I started talking to teachers, and I found out their competition was in January. They started in September, we're already in December, right? So I said, well, I don't know if I can really recruit people because it's the middle of December, and I don't know how much time I have. So I started talking to the teacher, and I said, how many groups are you short? And of course, I asked some friends around, and they were missing 3 groups didn't have mentors. And of course, their project was behind. And so I stepped up, and I became the mentor for all 3 of those groups. I didn't sleep much the next month, but we did that. And I got into the room, and these kids were so beat down because they had these plans and ideas at the beginning of this project, and they didn't have the mentorship they needed, and they didn't have the resources that they needed to do the project. And fortunately, I was in a position to do something directly, to be their mentor and purchase the supplies that they needed. So I went out and I bought some kits and I bought some supplies, and I started getting them excited again about their project. And I'm so proud that when we got to that day, every one of them was excited. Every one of them had learned something. They were learning about solar energy. They were learning about hydroelectricity. They were learning about maglev trains. You know, we came up with something cool for each one of their projects that they learned about. And they were engaged in a way that they hadn't been engaged before, and they learned about things that they wouldn't have learned about just learning about testing, whatever. I think projects are so important, and one of the ways that we really get kids excited about learning and getting engaged. It's so much easier to learn when you're excited. And the schools with the fewest resources aren't able to do that. So I think we need to make sure we have that and we're prepared to do it.
Thanks.
Yes.
So I think we all understand that education is a silver bullet. That's the foundation for a strong economic future for the country, but also for the future of the individual. For them to be able to be productive members of society, be able to make and own their own future, as I've already talked about. Now, I have an advantage of having actually been Senator Harkin's lead on education policy for a time. And so I understand the challenges that we're facing. And I think the things that we have to focus most on are making sure we're reaching out to every group and every individual who has any interest in education. It takes bringing our communities back together. I talked about the values that I was raised with, community being one of them. So we have to make sure that we're engaging with teachers, we have to engage with parents, we have to engage with students, but we also have to make sure that we're engaging with Americans with disabilities, that we're not leaving anyone behind. We continue in this country to lead to underfund individuals with disabilities education act. And when I was with Senator Harkin, we reintroduced the full funding of the IDEA. That is a tragedy. We are losing opportunity. Individuals are losing their own opportunity to succeed. So we have to make sure that we are bringing people to the table that understand education, but also that have a stake in it. And that's why we have to make sure that we have parents and students themselves also involved in this discussion.
Well, thank you for the question. It is one of the biggest issues that we have right now, and honestly, it's because of what I've seen on the state level, but this is something that is just always at the forefront right now. Look, the very first thing I've ever spoken on that state house floor was actually for higher education funding. And I have seen year after year on the state level that completely get underfunded, and now this last year we went after our teachers and got a collective bargaining. I mean, I tell you what, if that doesn't show you how important it is that we don't just take back this seat for that U.S. House, but take it back for our state, I don't know what will. Again, there are 6 or 7 flippable state house seats within this district that we have to win back with this one, and win back that governor's mansion, because a lot of that state funding, or school funding, does come from the state. I'm well aware of that. I also know how federal level should be working with the state, and it's not. How we do need to step up, especially when it does come to our special education funding. That's huge, and it is one of the great equalizers that we need in our country, and that right now it has been something in Iowa that we've always been proud of, and we've got it on our quarter. And yet now, look at us. When I made that speech on the floor my very first time, one of the things I pointed out when I entered the public education system, actually in 7th grade, we were at, I believe, 23rd in the nation in per pupil funding. Not the highest, but still, above the middle. When I made that speech 4 years ago, we had moved to 46th. That says everything. It is time we value education again, and also our teachers. And the other thing I'll say too, we talked about this earlier, we've got to make sure that the federal representatives are still connected with the district and still connected with the state. So I love the idea of being able to gather folks from school boards throughout the district, and you pointed this out too, how it's important that you have urban and rural, and make sure you're getting both viewpoints of what folks need, and possibly have you in a conference call every single month to hear from them about what's going on. Get out there into the districts, get into the classrooms, talk to teachers, and make sure you're taking that knowledge with you to DC. Thank you. Sorry.
I would 2008, everybody had economic troubles. And one of the things the Trump election was a referendum on, and was a referendum, is that white people in America, not just Republicans, were saying we are tired of experimenting with the multiracial democracy in this country, which is basically 50 years, you give or take, in 1960, it started around 1960. And sometimes I see Democrats trying to avoid that type of conversation. Yes, and we couch it in economic losses by people in rural America and stuff like that. And this issue of racism that exists in this country, when you run for office, how are you going to, how are y'all going to avoid the conversation, or will y'all step up and talk about this conversation? Because that's one of the things that affects every aspect of our life, particularly the black community. And again, I'm going to say this to sit down. When I was in college, a white student asked me a smart question about the black community. And when I told him, what happens in my community eventually happens in yours. So that's why it's important that the issue of racism be addressed in this country. And I know in Iowa we don't like talking about it. We couch it in different terms because we're real polite and stuff, and we hide up underneath of it, and we avoid it. How y'all going to deal with that? And
We got it.
yeah.
I know you got it.
I can talk a lot of things that would take way more than 2 minutes, so I'm going to try to answer your question with a few things here. First, as a lesbian woman, they've kind of attacked us too, right? They've lumped us in the LGBT community and race and all this community stuff. And here's the basics of it. We know that to be successful, you need 2 things: opportunity and hard work. And for a long time, what Republicans said was that this is the land of opportunity. And so all you have to do is work hard and you'll be successful, right? Sounds easy enough. And I call that poor shaming, right? Because what they were basically telling people was if you're poor, it's because you're not working hard. What's happened is with mass wealth inequality, more and more people have become poor. And so all of a sudden that was no longer a winning strategy. So the Republicans had to find a new scapegoat. And they said, oh, okay, well, it's a lack of opportunity. But they couldn't be honest about why there was a lack of opportunity, so they had to go find some scapegoats. And they said, well, it's because, we've had all this diversity, right? We've got these immigrants coming here. We have, black people have rights now, and so do gay people and transgender people. And somehow if a trans person goes to the bathroom there, that's, rinsing with your economy. And somehow if a black person gets, a job, that's keeping you and holding you back. But the reality is the opportunity gap is there because of the mass wealth inequality. Okay, Donald Trump's kids had a much better chance of being successful than somebody here, right? And that's just the reality. When you have that much opportunity, you don't have to work very hard to be successful. So we just have to be honest about what that is so we can combat that risk.
So thank you, Bernard. It's a very fair and poignant question. I was up talking with a couple of African-American pastors in Waterloo the other day. And there is a very real concern that we are slipping backwards in our race relations. And that's not just a Democratic concern. We have concerns in communities all over this district that are feeling that we're seeing a resegregation. That people are now going back to their neighborhoods, going back to be closer to people who would look and think and feel like them. And that's not limited to race. It's also inclusive of our politics. We are seeing a self-segregation of Democrats, Republicans, and independents and others. And we have to re-engage with each other. We have to make sure that we're having these conversations, that we're talking about the challenges that people are facing. When African Americans are having cops called on them for sitting in Starbucks, we have a problem. The first thing we have to do is acknowledge that problem. And it's going to take a bigger discussion than just here in the first district. It's a discussion and it's a coming together that we have to have at a national level. And my hope is that we can have a representative here in the first district who can engage in that discussion thoughtfully, carefully, and with input from communities all around this district. The strength of our country, the strength of our state is in our diversity. We have been strongest when we have welcomed others, when we have welcomed immigrants, when we have seeing the most that people can produce, not what we might want to see on the other, maybe not what they are least capable of, if you will, or what they were, the problems that we might see. We have to see what's best. And I think that's the challenge that we're facing right now. And it does take making sure that we're engaged with everyone and that we're listening, I think, is the most important.
Thank you again, Bernard, for that question. And I agree with Thomas. I mean, we've got to listen. We've got to sometimes just stop talking and have those tough conversations that we're not having right now as a country. And, you know, one of the things that I was really fortunate to get to be able to do, a couple years ago was during the caucuses. I was the state director of this nonpartisan group called Make It Work. And it was honestly an amazing opportunity where our focus was honestly just engaging women of color and working women, especially single moms, and getting in and talking to folks about issues and not candidates. That was fun because here we were, we had these tough conversations about childcare, about the inequalities in childcare, the inequalities in our wages, and very specifically equal pay. I mean, when we talk about that, first of all, we're at 77 cents on the dollar to a man's dollar, women in general. Then we got to go even further. A woman of color is making 68 cents. A Hispanic woman making 54 cents. So these are the types of stuff that we're not even talking about, and we try to bring up and we try to address, and we're not dealing with them. And so it's those types of conversations we have to continue to have, make sure we have policy around them to fix them. And again, get in rooms, and sometimes, to be frank, stop talking and start listening. So that's why I'm going to go sit down right now and listen to George. So thank you.
So, as the only African American candidate running in the race, you know, I certainly have thought about this quite a bit. You know, when I made the decision to run for Congress, it was after having opportunities to be able to meet with several folks in the community who I looked up to as mentors, to be able to talk about what it meant for someone like me to run for this office. And, you know, in this country for many years, we have hidden the fact that racism is still alive in many places in this country. We just saw it take place in Washington just last week when Representative Maxine Waters was on the floor giving her statement, and one of her colleagues stood up and said, we need to stop talking about discrimination. And so it's not going to go, but it's certainly compelling when you have people who are willing to at least take it on head to be able to, one, acknowledge the fact that we have some very difficult issues that are compelling us as a country. And while racism is certainly, you know, in that top tier, we still have people in this city, people who live within this district, people of color who can't afford to pay their rent, who can't move into a decent place to be able to care for their families. And so we've got to make sure that we are not ignoring the bigger picture, but find a way to be able to focus on the solutions to being able to address these issues that are plaguing our communities, people of color. I get in my car, certainly, and I drive, and every time I see a police car behind me, I'm making sure that I'm driving the speed limit. I got my hands on the steering wheel, that my wallet is in a location that it won't seem threatening to a police officer who pulls up behind me. That is just the reality of the community that I'm a part of, that so many are not accustomed to. And so we have to continue to certainly make sure that we're having those conversations and not shy away from the more difficult conversations about race that are plaguing this country. I wrote after Steve King talked about diversity not being our strength. Wrote an op-ed that you can find on my website that talk about diversity certainly being our strength. Diversity being the one thing that brings us together as Iowans. The one thing that certainly have made me feel good about wanting to live here and to be able to do the work in the community that I and my wife are both I'm so dedicated to.
I have a feeling George could talk a lot longer. We've just got time for one more question. Harold had raised his hand the last time. He also was the first person here. He also has a packet for each of the candidates. I already know what his question is going to be. And so I'm not doing this because I'm the chair of the Sierra Club, but I am. So we'll let Harold ask his question. We'll start with Thomas. This will be the last question for the floor. I'm sorry. The candidates will hang around as long as they can after and answer questions individually, but we need to respect everyone's time. Harold.
I understand that you have to deal with these issues to get elected, and you can't govern unless you're elected. But the number one issue that is above all issues right now is that we are sliding drastically into an unlivable climate. And we're not talking about decades from now or centuries from now. We're talking years from now. So, I've got a handout that I can give you this. Here's methane, for example.
Harold, you better just ask your question. I'm with you.
So anyway,
You know I'm with you.
what kind of legislation would you propose to get methane, carbon dioxide, black carbon out of the atmosphere that's already there?
Thank you, Harold. And I know you sent us a Facebook message or two about this as well, so I appreciate that. And I know we had a good conversation about it. I am proud of the fact that I'm supported by 350 Action and Climate Talks Vote, which are two national environmental and climate disruption, climate change advocations. Because I've made the environment and addressing our environmental challenges central to our campaign. I've also taken a no fossil fuel pledge, so I won't take any money from fossil fuel industry. So that's to preface by saying this is a serious issue. And it's perhaps the most challenging issue that we face because it touches everything. When you were looking at our infrastructure, we have to make sure that we're building into our infrastructure plans addressing climate change and the effects of climate change. Otherwise, we're flushing money down the toilet. It's not effective, it's not efficient, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. We have to make sure that we, especially here in Iowa, understand, perhaps better than most, that our environment is the key to our success. We have to make sure that farmers are seen as the heroes of taking on climate change and climate disruption. There can't be this butting of heads anymore. Taking on the environment and the challenges that we face are an economic opportunity. They're not an economic cost. They are how we lead the world. They are how we actually change the direction of our country and this state. So we need to make sure that we are partnering with our farmers and the farm economy to make sure that we are creating value-added agriculture, that we are looking at other ways for renewable energy and investing in our wind and solar industry. So we're taking fossil fuels out of the picture. I have suggested we need to make sure that we get to 100% clean energy by 2050. And I think that needs to be our goal and needs to be the way that we work forward to bring climate change into our discussion and make sure that we're addressing certainly carbon dioxide and methane.
Thank you for the question, Harold. Really appreciate it. And this is something we talked a lot about at the State House a couple weeks ago till 5 o'clock in the morning. It's just really disappointing right now to see us continuing to go backwards. That's what we've seen now on the state level and also the federal level, especially with Scott Pruitt as head of the EPA. This is something we've got to start addressing and continue to address to get to 100% renewable energy, clean energy. The issue is right now, folks, we do have to talk about the fact that you can invest in it and it can actually help the economy. One of the things that I was really fortunate to see here, was it 6 years ago now, 7? Oh my gosh, now I'm dating myself, right? No, but when Maytag pulled out of nuke, y'all remember that? That town was going to be devastated. And instead, now those folks are making wind turbines. I mean, this is the type of stuff that we've got to make sure that we are focused on here going forward. I want to sit on the committees. I know I won't be able to get this right away, but Energy and Commerce is a committee I'd love to sit on. And the reason being is because our economy is changing, our world is changing. And I want to make sure that Iowa has a seat at the table as that's happening when we're talking about those wind credits and the solar credits and making sure that we are having those wind turbines made in Iowa, getting those solar fields in Iowa, and making sure that we're training folks to do those jobs that are going to be the jobs of the future. And so that's part of how we address it. And, clearly we're not doing enough right now. We've got to do more. And thank you for your leadership on the issue, Harold. Really appreciate it. And look forward to hopefully working with you on that.
So I took the same pledge, not to accept any kind of proposal. And, and I want to thank Harold for sharing all of the information that he shared with us regarding this issue that is certainly very important to him. And for stretching our knowledge to not only look at the issue, but want to be more inquisitive about why this is such an important issue for us as a state and certainly as a country. We are, Iowa ranks in the top 10 among other states in the country in terms of the amount of renewable energy that we're using. And so at roughly about 40%, that means that there are a lot of states well behind Iowa, but that still have some catching up that needs to be done for us to be able to get to a place where we're certainly considering the effects on our climate in the way that they are, and what is going to be necessary for us to be able to move our, not just our country, but to continue to move this planet along, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we could slide into this. Talking with Harold certainly about many of the effects and the studies that are being done at Iowa State University, where we have scientists who are doing work, but that work is being shelved and not being shared with the general public or with those who have the ability to really be able to impact the change that's necessary to do it. It starts certainly with making sure that we have an EPA that is working on behalf of the people that is designed to work for. It certainly also means that we have kind of leadership leading in the EPA that believes in the work that scientists are doing, that believes that the work that they are doing is of great use and of great benefit to American citizens. And so that's what we've got to do if we want to really make this state one of the most important issues that we're faced with, and certainly overcoming those challenges. Because if we don't do that, we're going to find ourselves, at least here in the United States, where we have a president who doesn't believe in climate change, lagging behind other countries, and then having to move into the next administration playing catch up or redoing all of the work that has been done over the years and having to make up for a lot of lost ground. And so we've got to have people that certainly support these issues. We have to have people in place that certainly will push the envelope to get the EPA, to get our administration to lead and the sciences that are necessary to be able to move this forward.
So the favorite thing that I like that you brought to me, Harold, is you showed up and went to an engineer, came up to me with data, right? You have facts, you have charts, you have graphs, you have data. And one of the biggest reasons that we're falling behind right now on our environment is that we have a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. who don't want to look at the data. They don't want to trust scientific data. And so scientists and engineers all over the country are running, and that was one of the things that pushed me to get in this race and to run. At the same time that I was kind of pushed into coming and running in this race, something else was breaking out across the country dealing with this data and with our environment, and that was the Science March. You guys familiar with that? And there were some people who were supposed to organize the one here in Cedar Rapids, and I found out about 10 days before it was supposed to happen that it fell through. They hadn't planned it. And so even though I was trying to start my congressional campaign, I took a step back from that, and I said, well, then I'll organize it here. And instead of trying to have a totally separate event and doing that, I knew that they were having EcoFest right next door, which is a huge event. I think that's the first time we met because you were there at Sierra. And I put together, and I did a booth. I bought a booth, and I just brought signs that people could make. And so during the festival, we made signs, and then we marched around the festival, and then marched down the street to Rob Blum's office, and took a bunch of pictures. And I was like, it was covered by Homegrown Iowan, and they got some press and everything. And here we are leading the science march. And we did that in like 10 days, right? Like very, very simple things. But it's so important that we get back to trusting the data and that we get data. And what Republicans are trying to do is stop looking at the data and underfunding our scientists. They're making scientists, they're saying that they have this political agenda. Trust me, people working at the EPA are just reading the data. And so the first thing we have to do is be able to look at data and trust data and use that to drive our decision making on the choices that we're making. And so I think that's the most important thing. I think we need to get those scientists and engineers in DC so that we can do that.
Let's have one more round of applause for the just let me say, our next Phoenix Club meeting will feature Joaquin Castro, U.S. Representative from Texas, and that is Saturday, June 23rd, also from 1 to 3, and it's right back here. So I hope to see you all there. Thanks for coming. The candidates will answer questions for as long as they can. A couple of them need to get going really quickly. Thanks for coming, everybody. We appreciate it.
Good job, Courtney.
Yeah, thanks.